York ultimatum, I'm calling it. Has York given Kyle Shanahan an ultimatum about the season? I think he has. Let's go into the voice channel and talk. Okay, guys, the topic for today is what I've been talking about all day with Botan and Jack. I'm calling it the York ultimatum, and I'm asking you, does everything that's happened this offseason begin to make sense if we assume that Jed York has given Kyle Shanahan an ultimatum, which is win this year, make the playoffs? Start there.
I don't know. I mean, is it an ultimatum or is it more of maybe there's a little bit more relaxed feeling around the building right now because they know they just got a rookie quarterback and it kind of buys not Kyle time, but Jed time, John time. It kind of buys them all time. Because if you kind of look at the narrative in the offseason of how overjoyous they all seem to be, it was almost as if they all could breathe again. You know what I mean? Like with the pressure of having to win right away because you have a veteran quarterback where when you know you're going to hit that reset button, maybe they all kind of feel like they have a little more leeway now.
That's interesting. I mean, I just go back to this report on NFL.com. Uh, just the guy at the end, just kind of casually throwing in there, missing the playoffs for a fourth time in 5 years could put Shanahan in the hot seat in 2022. I mean, it seems to me that if you go back to, if you assume that Jed York tells Kyle, look, you got to win this year, no excuses, this is year five. Kyle's like, all right, well, I need a new quarterback then. I don't want my job being tied to Jimmy. And then they go through this whole dance trying to get a new quarterback. They look into Stafford, they look into Watson, they look into everyone. They look into Mac Jones. They decide not to take Mac Jones for whatever reason. They settle on Trey Lance. I mean, from Jed York's perspective, it could be the same ultimatum. I don't care. I mean, he's a rookie, whatever. You got two quarterbacks. Make the freaking playoffs. I don't want to hear it.
But I think of it more like, there was a ton of pressure, like you were saying, for them to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like with what Raymond was saying, like the Trey Lance pick just buys them all time, and it gives them the ability to not be so in the moment about this year. Where like if they aren't, like I mean, you keep talking about it, Grant. If they don't win, it'll be a problem, but I think it would be much more palatable if they didn't win and Trey Lance looked really good. Then I think, even with Kyle not winning, it still gives you more leeway than like, just having Jimmy Garoppolo would have been. It gives you way I just think they took pressure off themselves by selecting Trey Lance, whereas going into this offseason there was just so much pressure.
Um, if we take it from the perspective of Jed, right? So if Jed was going to give him an ultimatum, which he could have,
Mm-hmm.
or put pressure on him,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Jed's got to know that Kyle's worth something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't be an ultimatum of going to fire you,
No.
or and that would be he would be misvaluing his assets, right? If that was the
No, it
case,
would
right?
be I'll trade you. And Kyle's already actually
Yeah,
alluded to that. He's mentioned that he could be traded if the right price was on the table.
right,
Yes.
right.
I mean,
Um,
if they could get their Trey Lance picks back.
but what's interesting was I was talking to Josh on Discord, Josh
Mm-hmm.
Mangold on the channel here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's you know, is it that the York well Jed wants Jimmy to still be the starter because they sell jerseys? I mean, is it that? I mean, how much money do they make selling jerseys?
Maybe it's just
Is
that
that a
Jed wants
real
to
thing?
win. Maybe it's just that Jed wants to win. I mean, of course he wants to make money along the way, but
They may
Jed
want.
might want to just win. Hey, Aaron, don't be driving. Don't you drive. So I mean, I
Maybe
think what's that?
I was just gonna say maybe, and I mean, this would obviously be delusional, but maybe like Jed is still hanging on to Jimmy so much that he's like, oh, we're gonna win with Jimmy, we're gonna win with Jimmy, we're gonna win with Jimmy, and Trey Lance, like he was talking about, is 2 years down the line, right?
No
So
way.
Or maybe
yeah,
Kyle's hanging on to Jimmy because he knows he needs to win
Oh,
this year, and he hasn't
I
seen Trey Lance play a preseason game yet, and he's not, and he's being cautious. He's playing it's
but
playing it safe
but
But
it's
why is
obvious
he
how much
talking up?
he
Why is
hates
he talk?
Jimmy.
Yeah. Why is he talk? Yeah. If that was the, I mean, I understand, but
because
he's
he
talking
wants you
up
to know if
Trey.
he gets fired. Well, he didn't even want Trey Lance. He wanted Matt Stafford, and Stafford went to the Rams,
Oh,
and Lance
right,
is
right.
Plan B. So sure, I mean, I'm just saying, like to me, he's talking like a guy who thinks, "Wait, hey, look, I don't know what Jed York's gonna do. He could fire me. I
I
mean, think
bring all
about it,
the.
yo. What if they lose week 1 to Detroit? I'm not saying he gets fired week 1, but think about what the headlines would be. Think about Jed
Oh
York's
man.
reaction. He walked out of a meaningless loss against Miami last year. If they lose week 1 to Detroit, this guy is not patient. He's not rational. He is very emotional. I'm just saying, Kyle knows this. I think there's a lot of pressure on him. They won't fire him, but they could definitely trade him. Get some
Does,
free.
does
Yeah.
Kyle does Kyle seem to be acting as if he's worried about his job right now, though?
He
Is
doesn't
that what
seem
we
like
get
he's.
to do?
I
It doesn't
mean,
seem like it, and it seems unwarranted because most of the time when a guy has one winning season out of 4 seasons,
right.
normally that guy doesn't get an extension right away. So we've said this before. Jed, he seems to like to give money away, and couple
He's
that with
giving
his
a lot to Kyle.
impatience. That it's very tough for us to say that the way Jed feels right now, at the end of the year, Jed might feel a completely different way. Jed may be telling Kyle, "Hey, your job's safe." But we've seen Jed in the past that if Jed feels embarrassed, if Jed feels like he's not, I guess, happy with how he's perceived,
Mm-hmm.
then I think it gets a little more personal, and that's when we see the impatience start to
Yeah,
build up.
could totally see that. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you said does Kyle act like he's nervous? I mean, he always tries to seem like he's so cool, but to me, anytime a head coach starts talking a lot, I interpret that as nervousness. Why are you talking?
Yeah,
It's
I
not a
think it's
strong. It's not a strong stance.
I,
I think it's
I
interesting you
Explaining
picked up on
yourself.
that, Grant, because
Yeah.
like in past off seasons, he has not
No.
done what he's been doing this off season. Honestly, I'm kind of at the point where like I hear what you're saying, Grant, but at the same time, I don't know what Kyle's motivations are right now, and to me that's kind of the mystery. Why is
I
he
might have an
doing this?
answer.
Okay.
So I think Kyle cares more about his legacy than anything else.
Yeah.
I
No
think he
question.
knows that he can get a job anywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's so much that he's scared about his job. He's scared of how he's perceived as like, because he's been like the, what is it, the hot blonde, if you will, in the NFL for the last
Golden
3 or 4
child.
seasons. Yeah, the golden child. There you go. That's a better word. He's been like the golden child, right?
Yeah.
So like he's losing some of that luster, right? Because he's got a losing season. He's 31-36. There's all this stuff written about it that he's choked 2 Super Bowls, right? You could say what you will if you know,
Yeah. Fans. A
um,
lot of fans thought he wanted Mac Jones. A lot of people are kind of
right?
bailing on him, man. Like he doesn't have the same approval rating he had 3 years ago, is what I'm saying nationally.
And he's covering all bases, right? Like with
Yeah.
everything that he's saying. It wasn't my first choice. I like Matt Stafford.
Yep.
He's like covering
So just
everything that
know
he
if
needs to
if
cover.
I go 7-10 this year and Jed York fires me, just know that it was my fault. I wanted Stafford. Lance. He's setting up all the excuses, and I'm not
Yeah,
saying. I'm just saying the only reason you do that is when you feel like you're in a bad spot.
it is a lot of CYA that he's doing this
Yup.
off season.
Yup.
Cover your what, but like seriously, I mean that to me, like that's kind of what it is, and I guess
It's like why
I
did he
mean you
sit
guys
down
are
at
all
that?
saying this.
Why did he sit down at that pre-draft press conference? Because he needed to get his narrative out there. He can't let the
Yeah,
team set the narrative without him. And
Well,
why?
Yeah,
maybe like you said, is Kyle is very aware of Jed's impatience
Yup.
and very aware of what Jed can do, and
Yup.
maybe Jed's telling him you have nothing to worry about. And maybe
Ha.
Kyle's like, no,
I
I'm
don't
gonna
trust you.
protect myself because I don't trust you.
That's fair. Yeah, because you can't trust the word Jed York says. All I know is,
yeah.
look, Jed doesn't have to say it. All you got to know is Kyle is now the longest tenured coach ever under Jed York.
I think it's interesting. Like I didn't hear the show. I've just heard you guys talk about it. The show with McVay.
Yeah.
I mean, when is it that, I mean, I know this is a different time and age, but having two opposing quarterback or coaches on the same division talk to each other. I know they're buddies off the field, blah blah blah, but I think it's interesting that they can, both of them can talk candidly and kind of like be, hey, I don't give a crap about what team I'm on, really. I'm the commodity. So
Imagine,
you want to
Well,
get rid of me? I can go anywhere. You know,
um,
that's
um,
their attitude.
well,
imagine Jim
and
Harbaugh and
Sean,
Pete Carroll doing that.
yeah. Well, Sean McVay's been doing this all offseason. I was just gonna mention that, like, I mean, like they were saying Kyle Shanahan was their most requested guest, and like the guests that they had preceding him were like Robert Saleh, Matt LaFleur, all guys within like this universe. So once I started hearing the podcast, I kind of figured Kyle would go on at some point. That didn't throw me off too much. And like you're saying, Swan Song. I mean, they are like supposedly really good friends, and like listening to the podcast, it seemed like it too. So I don't think it's that out of the ordinary.